Hello, so I'm June Feiner, and I'm today representing the Sustainability Committee. And business first. In the event of the alarm sounding, I shall call the concierge to establish whether or not it is a true alarm. And if it is an emergency requiring evacuation, I shall instruct all those who can walk unaided or with a cane to leave by one of the two sets of double doors and exit the building. After that, those people requiring a walker or electric cart will be assisted out. After the room is emptied, I shall close the doors and leave. Other piece of business, please turn off your cell phones. And now for the pleasure part. As the representative of the committee, I'm happy and honored to introduce Julie Noble to give you the presentation, Being Green at and Around Woodland Pond. Julie Noble is the Environmental Education and Sustainability Coordinator for the City of Kingston. In this capacity, Julie manages the city's environmental projects, initiatives, and programming, including energy, land use, climate adaptation, transportation, recycling, and environmental education, and serves as the Climate Smart Community Coordinator. Julie was born and raised in Kingston and obtained her degree in environmental studies from SUNY Binghamton. And she also happens to be the sister of our CEO, Michelle Gramolia. So I give you Julie Noble.
How's that? Yeah, good. All right, thank you. Yes, I am sisters with Michelle. We are happily sisters for many over 40 years. So my name is Julie Noble, and I am happy to be here. I work for the City of Kingston as the Sustainability Coordinator. And that means that I do lots of projects around the city to help the community itself and the government become more green. And I moved to this position from being an environmental educator. So for 20 years, I was in schools teaching about recycling and kayaking and snowshoeing and all different things. And now I've moved on to doing projects. I also live as green of a life as possible. And so when my sister Michelle asked me to come and speak to you all, I was honored to come here today. And what I want to share with you are things that we do at the City of Kingston, things that you could do here, things that you can do on an individual level, and things that you can do on a level of the Woodland Pond complex. Some things are what we call low-hanging fruit, so very, very simple, cheap, easy, and other things take a long time, might require financing, might require commitment from people for years and years and years. So I'm going to go through a PowerPoint. I brought some demonstration things that I will share with you as I go through. But I also want to be able to be responsive to you if you have questions about anything or want to have a dialogue, that's fine too. I don't want to just sit here and blah, blah, blah the whole time. I'm happy to discuss things as we go along. So I did get a little bit of a debrief from Michelle before I came to understand a little bit about the operations that you have here and what you've done so far. I noticed that you have an electric vehicle charging station out front, which I parked right next to in my electric vehicle as I drove in, and she gave me a chance to see your where you do your recycling and your waste. And so I've got a little bit of an idea. But hopefully today I'll be able to inspire you with some more ideas. And if not, you can at least feel accomplished. If everything I tell you is something you're already doing, then you should feel proud and know that you've done a lot already. So being green at Woodland Pond. Oh, it doesn't matter. Whatever's easier for you all. This is fine like this or that. That's fine too. Whatever.
Yeah, I think maybe the way it was before.
Yeah, that's fine. Yep. So there are many, many different actions, thousands of actions that people can take to be more sustainable. And we kind of put them into different buckets. Things that are mitigation, so things that will reduce greenhouse gases and reduce the impacts of climate change. And then other things are adaptation. So how are we adapting to what is already happening? How are we able to move through and deal with what's already happening? And there's a lot of different frameworks for how to address sustainability. I'm going to move today through a framework that I really like, which is called the Sustainability Best Practices Framework. It's put on by a local government organization, but it breaks down into 10 different categories, the big buckets of things we can really influence on a local level, like energy efficiency and conservation, water and wastewater, green buildings. And I understand that there's going to be possibly a whole new construction project going on here at Woodland Pond where this could really come into play. Waste reduction and recycling I'll get into, purchasing, some renewable energy work, transportation, land using community design, open space, and community and individual action. Next slide. So it's a little hard to, are you able to zoom in so that you can see the whole thing at the same time? Can you go up to the little, okay. I'm the cuter sister. I'm the cuter one.
She's the cuter one. Yeah. Does that work for you?
That's perfect. That was awesome. Clearly, I'm younger. So when we think about sustainability and energy, it's really a pyramid, right? And we have to start at the top, which is use less and prevent. Do I really need something? In every decision that we make, do I really need to do that? Is that something I have to do? If so, how can I do so in the least impactful way? And the thing that we want to try the most is to minimize. So I use strategies like one in, one out. So if you're going to a store to buy clothes, you get something that you purchase. So let's say I go to get this sweater, which I actually got at a yard sale and somebody knitted, which I think is amazing. Get the sweater, go home, then I donate another sweater, which means I don't need that one. One in, one out. So then you don't have lots and lots and lots of things. And I do lots of swaps with neighbors. So that's something you can do here. You could set up a swap center where if somebody doesn't want some old clothes or something from their space or their home, you could swap it out. And you could organize that on a weekend or once a month or once a year where you have a clothing swap or a swap. It doesn't even need to be a sale. It could just be come here, bring your things you don't want and trade them out. When we aren't able to minimize the things we have, we need to be able to figure out how to reuse again and again. So a lot of the things I brought with me today are ways for us to think about how can I minimize the individual packaging and waste that I have by using something again and again. And some things are kind of obvious, right? So like in my house, we don't use paper napkins. We don't use paper towels. We use cloth napkins and cloth towels. It's just a simple purchase and we wash it and that doesn't get thrown away. We use handkerchiefs instead of tissues, so we don't have to throw away tissues. My mother-in-law, who is the knitter, we use knitted sponges. So when I wash my dishes, we wash our dishes with knitted sponges. When I do my floors, she knitted me a Swiffer cover that goes over the Swiffer, and I took the handle off of it, but this is the Swiffer cover, and I use that so I don't have to throw it away. We use, instead of plastic wrap, we use beeswax wrap that goes over our plates and things. If I have leftovers, this goes over it. It gets reused a million times again and again and again. It's made out of beeswax. So lots of different things. When I make my tea, I use loose leaf tea. And instead of using a tea bag that gets thrown out more tea bags, I use loose tea. I put that in there. And then this goes on top of the cup. And the tea comes out into the cup below. I drink out of a mason jar, so I don't have to throw containers away. And sometimes if I travel with tea, I use a little tea caddy like this, and I put my tea inside of that. And again, I use loose tea, and then I just wash this, and I use it a million times again and again, instead of having the waste of things like tea bags. So different ways we can recycle and reuse, and well, at least reuse. Not everything is something that we can use again and again. So when it's something we can't use over and over, it needs to be recycled. Now, what we have realized is that there are a lot of things that we want to recycle that cannot actually be recycled. And I went into one of the waste rooms before with Michelle before we came in here. And I opened up and looked in one of the recycling containers. And I know that you all use waste management it seems like you do single stream recycling, which is when everything is put into one container. But there was a lot of contamination in there. It's confusing. There's a lot of things that we can and cannot recycle. And so I'm going to leave these with you today. This is what we use in the city of Kingston, but it would apply to you as well. And so on one side, it has all the things that are acceptable in the recycling. All of the different paper related things. So cardboard, egg cartons, newspaper, magazines, cereal boxes, and all of the things that are bottles and cans. Now on your container in there, it says that you accept recycling numbers 1 through 7. I'm going to talk to Michelle because I don't think that that's true. Not that she's the one who made the list, but yes.
I'm the director of environmental services.
Oh, yes.
So that had come from waste management,
The 1 through 7?
the 1 through 7. So when I talk to the sales rep, I
Yep.
said, what can go in, because this is a great group and they ask a lot of questions.
Yes.
With the numbers. If it
Yep.
doesn't have a number on it,
Yep.
you throw it out.
Yep.
But waste management told me that 1 through 7 can go in that container. So that's the information we got from the vendor. But if there's something different,
I'm surprised that they're saying that because then they're saying that you can put in clamshells and styrofoam.
Right.
Which is not
right.
the case.
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to take over.
No, go ahead.
But I think a lot of the confusion, even on the residents' parts, is the numbering doesn't quite make sense. It only tells you what it's made of.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Correct.
And it breaks it down where it's okay, it's recycled. But if they've always told us put in 1 through 7 in there, and then they sell it to the lowest bidder or highest bidder, whatever, however that works.
Yeah.
That's what we were told, and that's why those signs are there.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm surprised that they're still telling you that because there's no way that they're recycling number 6. They just aren't. And so that's the thing. In Kingston, we told everyone to not look at the numbers at all because the number is indicating whether it's made of number 1, which is polyethylene, number 2, which is high density polyethylene, whatever it's made of, it doesn't indicate whether or not it can be recycled. So we teach folks that if it's a bottle or a can and it's made of glass or metal, you can recycle it. If it's plastic and you can drink out of it or eat out of it, you can recycle it. But things like we have an entire side of this of things that you cannot recycle. Prescription bottles are trash. Clamshells are trash. Toys are trash. Cups, all cups are trash. So China cups are trash as well. China cups are trash. Plastic cups are trash. So I don't want to question the system because if Waste Management told you what they told you, but there's no way that they're recycling those things. There's just not a market.
Because we have really 2 different systems. They want us separating out cardboard within the building.
Okay.
So inside the community building, you'll see the cardboard in one container, that goes into a cardboard container.
Yep.
The recycling bins, all that recycling goes into a recycling compactor.
Yep.
And then, garbage goes into garbage. But the cottages, since that is like your neighborhood pickup, they want that single stream.
Okay. Yeah, cardboard is right now it's the most valuable, which is why they're separating it out individually. So I would maybe say the sustainability committee, one of the things that could be done is to reach out to Waste Management to really understand, is this 1 through 7 really the way it is? Or are they just saying that because it's easier? But I don't know that of any community that is accepting clamshells and they're basically telling you that you can.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I can clarify that with Waste Management. So
Okay.
I can have that conversation.
Oh, awesome. Great. So yeah.
There is also the issue whether something in principle can be recycled, but economically it's not convenient.
That's right.
So a lot of things, yes, from the point of view of the user.
Yeah.
From the point of view of the user, maybe yeah, it's a way of getting rid of it in the right track, but that doesn't mean that indeed they get recycled at the end.
Right.
So on top of that, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
and there are things that may be recyclable, but can be also reused. So obviously in the pyramid scheme, reusing things,
Yes.
like for instance, Ziploc bags, if
Yes.
you want.
Yep.
I mean, those are not particularly recyclable, but I mean, we, for instance, use a Ziploc bag perhaps 50 or 100 times before we throw it away until it's,
Right.
you know, impossible to seal it.
Right.
Wait, what else though?
Yeah, me too. I have a rack just for Ziploc bags that I dry them on.
It's on.
So that's something, you know,
Yeah,
it's just different than what we understand in Kingston. And maybe waste management is operating in a different way, but either way, so be it.
But it's good to know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known like
Yeah.
that unless I go by what they tell me.
Yeah.
If they tell me that's what they're doing, because my questions usually generate from them.
Right.
Like, what do we do with this? Or what do we
Yes.
do with this? Or how do we handle this? Or,
Mhm.
or e-waste or anything like that.
Yes.
And so that's where all that comes from.
And so a very good website, if you have access to the internet, something that I use all the time. Because sometimes you'll just have something that you have no idea. You're getting rid of something and you have no idea, what can I do with it? And I use a website called Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency. That's where we send our trash. And they have something called Recyclopedia. Recyclopedia. It is from A to Z, everything you could ever want to know about how to get rid of paint, how to get rid of, a tissue box, how to get rid of a chair, how to get rid of a carpet, how to get rid of anything from small to large. Recyclopedia. You can check that out. Now, something else that I do simply in my home, and I don't know if you guys collect plastic here, but within the last few years, the state has passed a regulation where film is recyclable. So film, not film like from a camera, but film that is plastic can be recycled at any store, not in the tote. So I have this bag, which is just a regular old, like a mesh bag. I have this hanging in my closet. And this is from my newspaper, which we get every day. The bag's from crackers, cereal, cookies, bread. This was some San Pellegrino, so we bought some bottled seltzer. Lots of bags, lots of bags. What's this? Apples, plastic bag from apples. This was shishito peppers that we had for a bag from, and Ziploc bags. More bread. This is what I collect this in, and I bring this. I stuff it all into one. Right, so when I'm ready to go to the grocery store or any store, I stuff it all into one like this. And I bring this to the store, and every single store that gives out bags is required to take these back. Right in the front of the store.
Like a grocery store.
Groceries, no, but any store that gives out bags, whether it's Stewart's or Hannaford or Target or any store that has plastic bags is required to take them back. And so any plastic whatsoever like that, if it's plastic wrap that you put on top of your plate, as long as it doesn't have food in it, all these you see were clean, they all get recycled. Yeah.
You have to clean them out, rinse them anywhere?
That will be your own personal choice. For me, if I have to use a lot of water to clean something, I throw it out. I throw away peanut butter jars because it takes too much energy to wash it out. But so if it's like a little rinse out, then yes. And then you could like hang it for a little bit. That's why I use a mesh bag, because if they are wet, it dries out. So this is like, well, our newspaper happens to come in a lot of bags, but like this is, I don't know what this is. This is some kind of package that we got in the, oh no, you know what this is? This is the bubbles that come in packaging. Like when you get something from Amazon and it comes with the bubbles, I just pop all of them. I just popped them all. And that goes in there too. So all that gets recycled. Yes.
When you say that they have to take it back, does that mean that they are really getting recycled, or it's just a way to take it off the hands of the population?
Well, I can't speak to every individual place. They need to have a receptacle that will take it back. So if you walk into Walgreens or CVS or, yeah, they have to have a receptacle. Whether or not it's actually happening, I'm optimistic that it is. I
I feel
don't-
like
but-
most of the grocery stores have that container.
Yes,
You know, but like, I don't see it in like Target or Walmart.
they have it.
Unless it's in the recycling area, like that's where I normally see those containers. is in the recycling area.
Yeah, it should be right out front. And if they don't have it, you can ask for it.
Yeah, but the thing is, the thing to know really is, even it's potentially recyclable, can they recycle? What do they do with that?
They should be shipping it.
To,
I don't know where they're shipping it.
okay, well, that's a big question.
Right,
Okay, they used to ship them to China, not anymore.
Right. yeah. I don't know, but I do know that it cannot go in your totes. You can't put it in the totes in the garbage rooms, but you can bring them back to any store. So then the other thing that we recycle is compost. And I am so excited that you all have a commitment here at Woodland Pond with community compost. Compost and food waste comprises about 30% of our waste stream. 1/3 of the entire volume of our waste stream can be diverted to compost. And so in my kitchen, I know that you all compost in the kitchen here. And I'm not sure that you all compost in your individual spaces. I'm sure some folks do, maybe some folks do not. If you don't, I know that you have the availability to do so. And so there's lots of options for how you can do that. You can buy a designated specific compost container. You know, they make them with air holes on the top, lots of capacity. They make lots of different types of biodegradable bags that you can put your things in, so you don't have to touch all the grossness. I literally use an OXO container from Target, which cost me about $10 or less. And I can see when it's full, and I have 3 of these on my counter, and then we bring them out to the compost container. And so we put everything in here. As you can see, eggshells, asparagus that I had last night, parchment paper. We put in all the different kinds of peels, tea bags if I use them, tissues if I have to find a tissue, everything that would biodegrade, we put into here. We cut it up small so it will decompose, and then that goes out to our compost. It's true. Okay, so
I just
yes, the
said
tea
that.
bag does have staples in
A
it.
staple in it.
Yep, I compost it with the staple in it. It depends on how you use your compost and what you want to do. So, right. So I use Michelle has a great garden too, but I have a great garden outside that we use our compost in. And I know that there's going to be some things that get in there that are small that I think will just, I'll just disregard it. Like I don't take the labels off of produce. Those are also biodegradable, by the way. They're edible. Those little stickers that say like 4011 for a banana. Those things are food grade. You could technically eat them. I wouldn't suggest eating them. You can. And I put them right in my compost also. But yes, there is a staple. You could take it out, but I just compost it. What was the other question? Oh, so it depends on your system. If you're using a commercial system like you do here, which is Community Compost Company, they would give you the regulations on whether or not you can include meat and dairy. On a commercial level, they should be able to accept meat and dairy because they are putting it into a commercial system that gets hot enough to break down the bacteria. In a backyard system like mine, or most like if you're just doing it in your backyard, I would not put in meat and dairy. That being said, we don't eat meat and dairy we don't eat meat in my house. So we were vegetarian, but we eat a lot of dairy. So we don't put meat and things into it. I don't know if community compost has you.
Yes,
put
community
into it.
compost will accept meat and fish and bones in our 2 big bins. One is at the back of the south wing, one is at the back of the north wing, and you can put those things in it.
Which makes it much easier because you can just put pre-consumer things before you cooked and things after you cooked.
No bags, not even biodegradable bags.
Okay, so they tell you not to use bags. Okay,
Yeah, our biggest problem is contamination.
Yep.
You know, whether it's a butter packet.
Yep.
or a
plastic
bag,
fork.
because it's-
Yep.
Like you said, if everyone's bringing it down in that container, that's great. But if it's a plastic bag and then the plastic bag winds up in there, it ruins the whole lot.
Yep.
So that's a lot of problems we have. Most of
Yeah.
it is generated through the kitchen.
Yep.
Where they're probably about, 30% of the composting, maybe not even, but the kitchen does most of it.
Okay. And we are actually shifting in the city of Kingston. I'm finishing up a 3-year study to evaluate whether or not we can do citywide composting in the city of Kingston. And ideally, we will start that next year, which would be our entire city collecting compost from every single house, which would be really incredible. So if we don't do that, all of our waste goes to Seneca Meadows landfill, which is 300 miles away from here, and it sits there forever. So we try to eliminate that as much as possible. Go to the next slide.
Worst vision, so,
Oh,
sorry.
I think maybe over or nope.
Gotta be next year somewhere.
It's okay. Nope, let's zoom.
This one?
If you hit over, does that work?
No, like over here.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. Yeah, there you go.
There's Mark.
It's okay. So, did you have a question? Oh, yeah,
Couldn't we hold these to the end, perhaps?
it's okay. It doesn't matter to me. What's up to you?
Yeah, we freeze our thing. We freeze our compost
Mhm.
and then just take smell.
Sure. Mhm. Yeah, you could put it in the refrigerator in a coffee can. You could put it in the freezer. I have tried all the different types that you buy on the market with the filters in them and with the thing that you change and with the charcoal, and this one has air in it. But frankly, I mean, not that I'm promoting OXO or anything, but like a simple container like this is so simple, and you just pop it
I
and go.
think that promotes, I think, the cleanliness and the pest control as well, which is also a problem.
Yeah. So something to go beyond, reduction and recycling is to make sure that with your own purchases and on a larger level of Woodland Pond, that you are purchasing things that close the loop. So when we recycle, if no one is buying materials made out of recycled materials, then there's not a market for it. We have to close that loop and close the cycle so that there is a demand for the recycled products. And so there are things we can buy that are more environmentally friendly. And then there are things that we can buy that are made of recycled materials. And all of this is something you should evaluate when you're making your purchases. So for instance, when we do our laundry, when I'm doing laundry and I use my dryer, it's a big deal because I normally use my clothesline. So if it's warm enough out or if it's windy or whatever, we put our things on a clothesline. If I use the dryer, I use a dryer ball that knocks everything around instead of using a fabric softener, and it just bounces around in the dryer to get everything going. Now for Christmas this year, a friend of mine bought fabric softener dryer sheets, which typically have a ton of chemicals in them, but this is a plant-based natural type that she sent. Not that I'm promoting any of these products, but I'm just showing you what's in my kitchen. So they make more natural products if you are going to use something like that. With any of the cleaning products, trying to minimize waste and minimize the impact of the chemicals. So when I buy hand soap, I buy it in a big bag and I refill the container again and again. And then when this is done being used, this plastic gets recycled in here. Okay, so this is buying less packaging and recycling more. So all of the ways that we procure things and purchase things, we should be mindful of making as green of a purchase as possible. Next slide. Paper is one thing that we tend to use a lot of. Here are some quick tricks. like setting duplex as the default on your printer, so it prints on both sides, thinking before you print, so you're not printing everything, buying recycled paper so that it closes the loop of when we recycle our newspapers, we need to buy paper that's made out of recycled materials, recycling the paper when you're finished. My sister told me you guys have something called goose paper here, which I've been doing forever. On my desk at the office, I have any papers that I didn't need anymore. I cut them up into quarters and I reuse that for scrap. And that's all I ever use for scrap. And simple things like when you're printing something, reduce the margins, make the margins smaller so that you are using fewer pages. Things with computers, using your screensaver on your monitors, shutting down the computer when it's not in use. And even if you're out to buy a computer, choose a laptop instead of a desktop because it uses less energy. So all the different purchases, making mindful decisions. So when it comes to food, you guys are here in New Paltz. You have an unbelievable access to fresh, beautiful food, many, many, many different farmers markets. And I'm certain that you have transportation here that will be able to help get you there, but there's so many different local farms, and buying that produce locally and food locally reduces the carbon footprint of the food system, which has such an unbelievable impact. And that's something we can control with our dollars. When you're not able to buy locally, so in the middle of winter right now, we're not going to buying strawberries at Dressel's Farms. We want to, if we can, choose to buy organic. And these kind of options can be personal options, but also options through your food system here at Woodland Pond. And you might think you might not have influence on it, but if the community speaks, it speaks volumes to influence the purchasing here. So here's how to reduce food waste. First of all, plan ahead. So understand what meals am I going to have this week, this month, whatever. I go shopping for once every 2 weeks. So I buy 2 weeks worth of food and I plan my meals out for the 2 weeks. So I buy what I need. I look at my recipes, I understand what I need, and I only buy the amount that I need. I make sure I store it correctly, because if you don't, you're wasting all the food and then it gets done. I don't know what the bottom one says, cook something. Cook it. Just cook. Okay. Oh, cook the right amount. So I have a family of 3, my husband and I have an 11-year-old son. And so we cook for a couple days, cook once, eat multiple times, but I don't cook an amazing amount of food, a ton of food that goes to waste. We need to understand what we're eating. We eat and store our leftovers. So every day for lunch, we bring leftovers for lunch, and then we compost what we're not able to eat to minimize our food waste. I know, he's eating so much already. If I bring leftovers and I'm so excited about it, and then he eats it and it's like, wait, I was excited about that for tomorrow. That's not yours. So again, back to the composting. This is a picture of Seneca Meadows. So every day, just from Ulster County, 55 large tractor trailers go all the way up to Seneca Meadows, which is 350 miles from here. 55 of those tractor trailers worth of our trash. They drive up, they wait in a line. I've seen it, I've been there. They drive up the hill, they dump it out, and they come back for more. And it's something that we can influence by reducing the emissions from the transportation and the impacts of the landfill itself.
Question on the landfill?
Yep.
Is that just Ulster, or is that just, how many counties does that incorporate?
All of them.
All of them?
The state.
Wow, the whole state.
Yep. So almost all the state goes to Seneca Meadows. Here's the little trick. We used to also send trash to Staten Island used to have a Fresh Kills landfill down further south, and there are other smaller landfills around. But as a whole, most of the entire state goes to Seneca Meadows. Now, to tell you where Seneca Meadows is, if you go north to Albany and then you head west to Buffalo, it's the tallest mountain between Albany and Buffalo, is this mountain of trash. And so it's out by near Syracuse, just past Syracuse. And unfortunately, it is reaching its capacity. So landfills are permitted for a certain amount of trash, and their capacity is very close to being filled. And so within several years, Well, that's why our trash fees keep escalating, because there's less and less space, but soon there's going to have to be alternatives. And that's why Ulster County with Greene County and Sullivan County have been looking at alternatives for what to do with our waste. So they proposed this thing called GUS, which is Greene, Ulster, and Sullivan, a waste to energy facility where they burned our trash to create energy, composting on a larger scale, all different options, because shipping it to a place where it just sits is not going to last forever. Yeah.
We lived in Staten Island for many years.
Yeah.
And we had the tallest mountain.
That's right,
in the
Freshkill.
Staten Island, Freshkill
Yeah.
site.
Yeah.
Until they closed it. And they reconditioned the whole landfill and so on. They planted. So it's a beautiful park now.
Yeah.
Because it's all a lot of compost underneath.
Right. It's true. And that's the thing, a closed landfill.
It took about 10 years to get it done. So, but then they had to find the alternative.
Right. A closed landfill can have a lot of
They
options.
didn't want the trash in Manhattan. I don't know why.
I don't know either. So if you want to see a closed landfill that has great reuse in the town of Ulster, just out of the city of Kingston, near ShopRite, if you're going to the Hudson Valley Mall, the landfill that was open when I was young is now covered in solar panels. And so that is a good reuse of that space. It doesn't penetrate the lining, but it is able to reuse that space in an effective way. So dining out, sit down and dine out when you're eating so that you're using fewer takeaway containers. If you are going to take away food, bring a container with you that you can take that leftovers home with you. Use filtered tap water instead of bottled water. We have unbelievable water in our area. Hopefully you have great water here as well. You'll see that I always bring my own jar with me, no matter where I'm going. Oh, and we're back. And so cutting down on packaging as much as possible and eliminating single-use things. New Pulse has been very progressive about eliminating single-use straws and ketchup containers and things like that, but you still need to be mindful about that. Next slide. Using durable, reusable cutlery and serviceware whenever you can. Cloth napkins, I mentioned before. Silverware and dishes to replace styrofoam. And if you are traveling or need to use something that you don't want to break or whatever, biodegradable silverware is very, very accessible now. So it's just made of corn or other plant-based things. And bamboo also very accessible. I have a little to-go container that has chopsticks in it, and here's a spoon. I must have lost the fork. And I just take that with me and I keep it with me when I need to travel. Next slide. Here's some dining things at Woodland Pond, because there's decisions that can be made by you and there's decisions that need to be made by the organization as a whole. You can influence your food service provider. Maybe. See, I'm the optimist. Maybe have more meatless meals, have options for meatless meals, buy more local food, understand where it's being sourced from, understand how the packaging is being, how it is arriving in the packaging, expand the composting as much as possible here. Influence the menu, decrease single-use items, work on menu planning. So when they're receiving foods, is the menu worked out so that you're making the most use of the food that's being, being purchased? And another option is to start your own buying club. You have enough people here that you could create a buying club. A buying club is basically when a lot of people go in on the same thing. Everyone buys, shampoo. So why not all buy the same shampoo and it'll come in bulk? Or everyone buys soap, or everyone buys cleaning supplies, or everyone buys apples, or everyone buys paper towels, or whatever it is. And then you buy those in bulk as a community, and you as a whole, those things would be delivered as a whole in bulk, and then you would pay less. A buying club. You have enough people here, you could do something like that. Next slide. How about energy efficiency and conservation? LED bulbs are the way to go. I don't know if you all have had an LED audit or retrofit yet. The whole building, all the buildings?
Just got it swapped out our exterior, most of the interior.
That's awesome. And if individual lights, you can buy those so easily now wherever you need them. But the big thing really is looking for phantom electrical draw and managing your thermostat. So phantom electrical draw is something like if you have a cell phone charger and you have it plugged in and you walk away with your cell phone and your charger is plugged in, there could be still a draw on that electrical line. Or other things that you aren't using all the time that have a little bitty, maybe have a little bitty light on them or a little bitty electrical draw. Use a surge protector to turn those things off. Otherwise, you're constantly drawing energy. And here's another thing. When Matthew, who's my son, he's 11, when he was young, we installed like 50 of these in my house. This is the little thing that goes into your outlet thing. And so it just goes in there, right? To protect your kid from just sticking their hand in the thing. Well, here's the trick. He's old enough now, he doesn't stick his hand in them, not that he ever did, but we leave them in because it acts as insulation. Walk around your space, and I don't know how well this building is insulated, but if you put your hand, now this is on an exterior wall only, it's irrelevant if it's an interior wall. If it's an exterior wall, walk up to this and put your hand on it, and you'll think it won't be a big deal, but you will feel air coming in. These blocker things are a super cheap way to add a little bit more insulation into your space. Simple tricks like that, or like a draft dodger, which is you can just simply make out of like a long sock with beans in it, or a stocking that you put beans or rice in it and put it along that window or that door, and that will keep the draft out of there. Lighting. I don't know how much control you have over lighting or what lighting is like, but if you have a little space, why light up the whole room? You can light that single space with task specific lighting. So if we were using that space over there, we could just use those lights as opposed to the whole room. And your thermostat. My understanding is that you all have control over your own thermostat. The more efficient we can make our rooms and the more comfortable we can make the whole building, the less we have to individually manage our own thermostats. And here's the thing, we need to dress to the season, right? So I came in here, I didn't know if it was gonna be hot or cold. I was wearing my sweater. It's pretty warm in here, much warmer than I keep it in my house. But you dress to what it is. What we wanna do is understand that every single degree we change our thermostat, we are saving an incredible amount of energy over time. And this building is designed to have an envelope that's very secure so that individually, we want to maintain as efficient as possible in temperature so that the whole system works collectively. But the tough thing is by opening windows or by changing that system, it throws off the whole envelope. And so we want to be mindful of the entire system and keeping our thermostats as efficient as possible, a degree or two higher in the summer, lower in the winter to make sure that we're saving energy. Next slide. Here's a living space, a couple of things you can do with investments. I know that it's a little challenging if you're, depending on the circumstances here, but if there is room to maneuver at all, if you're buying appliances, making sure they're Energy Star, furniture and things like mattresses and carpets, making sure they're eco-friendly, and using making renovations or retrofits. There's going to be a big project to possibly retrofit some of the things in the building. And in that process, to be looking at how can we do so most efficiently? Can we switch to air source heat pumps, which are a way to use the natural temperature of the air to heat and cool the building, as opposed to generating that energy through electricity? And houseplants. Houseplants can do an amazing amount of houseplants can be do an incredible amount of things for your oxygen, for your mental health, for your unbelievable living. And my home is filled with houseplants, and I encourage you all to have those. Next slide. Office space, buying recycled products, reducing the packaging of your products, buying those in bulk. We talked about cleaning products a little bit, kind of went over some of these already. Go ahead, next slide. So in the bathroom, again, I'm not sure how much control you have, but if you do, there are simple little things that you can do, even if you don't change the whole footprint of your bathroom. On your sink, you can buy a $1.50 aerator that screws onto the faucet, right onto this part, and it cuts in half the amount of water it uses, but it feels like the same amount of water. It basically is replacing it with air, but it still feels like the same amount. It's just called an aerator. It screws right on there. You could, I don't want to tell you to modify anything in your space. So, but there are, you could, okay, great. There's ways to reduce the flow on your shower head. So if you buy a low flow shower head, again, it's just a small purchase, but by switching out the shower head, it aerates the water and feels like the same amount, but it's actually less water that you're consuming as a whole. The same thing can happen with your toilet, low flow toilets. You can put a brick in the back of your toilet that takes up some of the space so that it's not consuming as much water. And importantly also is reporting if you have a leak, because even a little bitty leak can waste water over time. Next slide. In the kitchen, we talked about some of these already, doing compost. If you get confused or if there's a lot going on in your refrigerator, choose a shelf for how old things are. So everything on this shelf I need to eat first. Everything on this shelf I need to eat next. These things can stay a little longer. Like I said, in my house, we eliminate paper towels and napkins, but also single-use things. Like I said, we use the beeswax cover for the plastic wrap. But even things like a Keurig machine, if you have a Keurig machine for coffee, yes, it is. If you're only one person, you might not want to make a whole pot, but every single one of those things is trash. That's a lot of waste. Yes.
There are recyclable Keurig containers. You can refillable. I'm sorry.
Oh,
that
refillable.
you
Yes.
can refill
Yeah.
them with
Yes, right.
loose coffee.
Like kind of like a tea caddy, but you put refillable, right?
But they are
Yes.
exactly
Yep.
fit the
So if you are going to use a Keurig, that's the good answer. That's right. And actually for coffee, I use a French press, which is similar to this. And actually this is designed for coffee, I believe, although I use it for tea. A French press, basically you're putting the grinds in here and adding the hot water, and then it comes out and you're not using any waste at all. Oh, and the dishwasher, it is much, if you have one, it's much more efficient to use a dishwasher if it is full, when it is fully used, than to hand wash for a long time. Because a lot of us just waste a lot of water when we're hand washing. All right. Oh, and saving extra water for plants. That's a trick that I have too. So next to my sink, I have a watering can. And at the end of each day, when Matthew comes home and he has a little water left over, or I come home and I have a little water left over, whatever, or if I'm having breakfast and have water and there's some left over and I don't want it, we dump the extra water into the watering can so that when the watering can is full, then I water my plants. So we're not wasting any water. All right, transportation. We've been all taking staycations recently with COVID, unfortunately, but it is saved an incredible amount of emissions with reducing transportation. When you are moving around, the most efficient way in terms of energy use is walking. The next would be biking, then train, then bus, then car, then plane in terms of efficiency. Walk as much as you can. If you can't, bike as much as you can. If you're going to travel far, travel by train, bus, then car, then plane. And when you're traveling, pack lightly. It might not seem like a big deal, but the less you pack, the less heavy the transportation is, and it is much more efficient. But importantly around here also is making sure that you arrange your trips with others and together so that you are minimizing individual trips. So if you need to go into, Stop and Shop and you need to go to CVS, plan those on the same day so that you're doing it in one trip, as opposed to going to Stop and Shop today, going to CVS tomorrow, going to the next place the following day, because every time you're doing that, you're driving all those miles. And to carpool with others, and you can easily arrange that here. You could set up a carpool system, and Woodland Pond could incentivize that in some way to carpool so that you are minimizing those emissions. Next slide. Individual action, supporting local environmental organizations and groups, serving on a board or commission. New Paltz has several conservation commissions. They have climate smart commissions. You have your own sustainability committee here, and that is how change is made. Shopping locally and reusing locally. If you are a reader, use the library instead of buying books and more and more and more books. Use the library. Go to the restore or yard sales or places where things are used again. 80% of the clothes that I own, I get from a thrift store, because that is perfectly good clothes and other things that other people are getting rid of that I'm able to reuse for a much cheaper fee. And there's also something called Repair Cafe, and you could do your own Repair Cafe here. Repair Cafe is when something breaks. Oh, you are?
We are working on that.
Oh, nice.
We already are officially on the Repair Cafe International.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but we are trying to organize it.
That's awesome. That's really, really great. So if everyone doesn't know what Repair Cafe is, it's people that know how to fix things, fixing things that are broken, and doing it together and teaching each other how to do it. And it's amazing. And I'm so excited that you're doing that. That's really awesome. Next slide. So here's some projects for Woodland Pond as a whole. And some of these things you're maybe already doing, but if you aren't, here's some ideas. First, invest in renewable energy. I understand that there's not renewables here and it may be complicated, but there are funding sources like PACE financing, which is only good for commercial. And this is a commercial facility. So PACE, which is property assessed clean energy, is a financing mechanism that's used for renewable energy and energy efficiency projects. And this facility can apply to that funding. You could also go into a community solar project. You could do it individually or as an organization here, where if you don't have your own panels, you are purchasing panels that are in a remote location and you are benefiting from the energy of those facilities. And more are popping up all over, and you save energy with community solar each time that you purchase it. And the other option would be using a power purchase agreement. So the organization itself could enter into a power purchase agreement and purchase solar for this facility. So shifting towards fuel efficient and alternate fuel vehicles, I see that you all have EV charging stations, which is great. I don't know if you have a fleet here, but if you do, you should be shifting towards greening the fleet, which means making sure that any new fleet purchase is an alternative vehicle, either hybrid or electric. It is something that you might automatically think is out of the question, but generally it's not more than 30% more than a normal vehicle. And as long as you have the infrastructure, it will save over time. In the meantime, incentivizing ride sharing, and something simple that could happen would be to adopt an anti-idling policy. So we just did this in the city of Kingston because idling vehicles create emissions that are contributing to climate change. And so for every minute that you're idling, it's like you're driving miles and miles and miles. And so we created an anti-idling policy for the entire city where you are not, even though there is a 5-minute limit on heavy duty vehicles statewide, we instituted a 10-minute limit for every single vehicle in the city of Kingston that you cannot idle more than 10 minutes or you get a fine. And so you could do a local anti-idling policy for this facility as well. Next. Yes. Next slide. And we do have exemptions in that policy. So things like people who work out of their vehicle, or if it's above a certain temperature or below a certain temperature. Yep. Yep. So a couple other ideas, and I'm glad to hear it. You've already conducted a lighting audit and retrofitted all your lights to LED, but you can conduct a full energy audit of all of the buildings and enter into a performance contract where all of the energy retrofits that could be done would be done by a firm over the course of time, and you would understand the scope of everything that needs to be done. An energy audit tells you everything that you need to do. And you could benchmark your energy use. Benchmarking is saying, okay, in this year or this month or this day, we used this amount of energy in this building. And then the next month, we now understand we use this amount, and the next month, and you compare it over time, and it gives you a ground level understanding of what you need to reduce. And there's a simple system that's free called Portfolio Manager. We use it for every single building over 1,000 square feet in the city of Kingston, so we can understand what energy we're using and how to reduce it. Some water and wastewater.
Does that automatically integrate?
It's automatic. Yep, and we use Central Hudson. So water and wastewater, if you don't already have it, it would be great to evaluate a non-toxic landscape management plan. I don't know if your grounds are treated here, but if they are treated with chemicals, then that's something you might want to address because that is toxic chemicals being used on your grounds. So the county of Ulster uses a non-toxic landscape management plan. Nothing toxic can be used on any of the parks, any of the medians, any of the public spaces. And that's something you could evaluate here. With additional water sense and water conservation issues like we talked about before. Green heating and cooling would be things like using air source heat pumps or geothermal energy, which are very, very accessible now. You don't need big tracts of land to dig in the ground anymore. Air source heat pumps just connect right into the wall and increase your efficiency almost immediately. But the bottom line is to create a climate action plan if you don't have one. So the city of Kingston now has our second climate action plan. 10 years ago, we created one, which went through hundreds of recommendations for what the city should do to be more green and reduce energy use by 2020. 2020 just passed. This is our second one, 2030, for 10 more years. And it goes through recommendations of what we should be doing as a municipality and as a community to reduce our energy over the next 10 years. And we set goals and it gives us an action plan to follow it. And this community here could do the same thing. Next slide. Wrapping up, this is waste reduction. We went over this a little bit already, expanding so these are big scale for Woodland Pond, expanding more composting, additional recycling collection. So specific additional things like ink collection, e-waste, white goods, things like if you have microwaves or refrigerators or air conditioners or things like that, if those aren't being recycled, those white goods should and can be. And simple small things like TerraCycle is a use of specific products like toothpaste and other products that get shipped to TerraCycle that would normally not get put into recycling bin. But if you go to TerraCycle.com, there's dozens and dozens of items that could be recycled through this specific system. Establishing a reuse and repair center, you're doing that already. Adopting a green procurement policy, as I mentioned before, making sure that each thing that you're purchasing on an organizational level follows that procurement. Maybe do an unsubscribe campaign. How do we get rid of all this mail? Or how do we get rid of all these things that we don't need anymore? Create a campaign to unsubscribe from things. Host recycling trainings. There's lots of folks that can come, and including me or somebody from waste management can come and go over that. And also a big impact thing, and this is directed towards management, if you are entering into contract for construction, stipulate in your contracts how you want the construction to be more green. Make sure that construction and demolition, the C&D debris, is recycled and stipulate that in the contract. Make sure that if you are replacing the carpets in the entire facility, that they are made from recycled materials. Make sure that the paint is low VOC. Make sure that the furniture is as efficient as possible. And those things can be stipulated in the contract. If you're going to spend tons of money on a project, you should make it right. Next slide. So bottom line, try one thing. Even if I said a million things that you already know, maybe there's one thing that inspired you. What other things can you think of? How can you lead by example? Basically, these are some of my ideas. I hope that I was able to excite you, or at least thank you for listening for an hour. I appreciate that. You can go to the last slide. So my name is Julie, and everything that I do all the time and everything I've ever done is on this website, which is incredibly hard to see. I chose the wrong color, kingston-ny.gov/sustainability. And thank you. Oh, thanks. You're very good at this. Okay.
Question.
Okay.
I found 3 days ago that you have.
I know,
Okay,
I know.
that you have toilet paper made from the one that we got 3 days ago from not from paper,
Bamboo.
from bamboo, yeah. And I think that the name is, keep your your crab, something like this.
Oh, yes, yeah. And they come in individual little package containers. Yeah, I've seen those.
And they come in the big box. that
Yeah.
they-
And they're colorful. Each individual one has a different
Right.
color. Yes, yeah, I've seen those.
And, okay.
I haven't tried it yet. It seems like it would be scratchy, but maybe not.
Okay.
Well, I got some of them. They're very nice, very colorful.
Oh,
And another fun thing that I miss here, I grew up in my country that we have bidet in every
Yeah.
place.
yep.
Okay, I understand that you cannot install bidet in every bathroom, it's expensive, but there are alternatives. You have them in India, you have in all the Middle Eastern, and I don't know why.
I have a
you
bidet.
wouldn't use it.
I have a bidet at home and it's an after product thing that you put on your regular toilet on the side.
Yeah,
Michelle has one too.
we can, there are people here that do have bidets put on. You can put them on your toilet after the fact. So if you're interested in a bidet, leave your name with concierge. We'll give you some information.
Look at that. Ask and you shall receive. Ask for something else.
Julie,
Yes.
Julie, thank you. First of all, thank
Oh,
you.
you're welcome.
And I want to know where you get your hope. Where do you get your hope?
I don't know. My mom, maybe?
No, I wasn't asking about
Yes.
attitude. I was asking about policy.
Oh,
Why do you think all of this is worth doing? Why do you think I should do it?
wow. I wasn't ready for that.
Sorry.
It's okay. It is very easy to wake up in the morning and think about. Is this me? Okay. Okay. There's a lot of folks that wake up and really get very upset and angry and frightened about climate change. And it's easy to spiral into we've done it. We're past the time of no hope. It's too late. And it's sort of easy to get wrapped up in things on the global scale. Like, how can we possibly manage, what if my recycling is not actually being recycled? What if it's all getting thrown away? What if this is a conspiracy? What if all these little things I do don't mean anything? And the reality is, how much am I going to really change the world if every day I just use this leaf thing? Not that for tea, not that much. But every decision that we make adds up. And every decision that everyone makes will add up. And eventually we will be not too far from now, we will be forced to be making these decisions. They won't be decisions. It's just going to be our life. I'm positive about it because it is the right thing to do. And I just think it's the right thing to do. And I know that I live in a small town. Now, Kingston's a city, but the reality is it's pretty darn small. But I have a legacy in my town. And I have taught people to do little things and to reconsider. And just thinking, the fact that you even took the time to come here means you were thinking about it. And some other time today or this week or this month, you will see something in your house and be like, oh man, I should do this instead, or I should do this instead, and we will make change. And ultimately, there will always be people that think that everything that I've said is hogwash. There are people in my own office that think that the work that I do is superfluous and irrelevant. And I fight through it. And I have since 1998 when I started working for the city, and I'm still here. And I will until I retire. And it's because I think it's the right thing to do. Do I think I'm changing the world? No. Do I think any of us can change the world? No. But it just feels like I want to live in a place that's cleaner. And so I'm doing my own part.
It's on. You showed briefly a 10-year plan. There's on the
Yeah,
table there.
yep.
Is that for the city of Kingston?
Yes.
Or Ulster County or?
It is for the city of Kingston, but Ulster County has some plans as well. Both of our plans are entirely replicable. So our first plan, both of these are on our city's website, and I can get Michelle to give you access to them as well. Our first plan was a lot of operational things, very hands-on, like change all the lights to LED, green the fleet, a lot of the things I talked to you about today. These plan B, their second plan is more transformational. So things like shifting our entire city's system to more electrification of buildings. Establishing a community choice aggregation program. So reevaluating our entire energy source. What else we got in here? Tons of crazy stuff. Transitioning our city fleet to all the electric vehicles. Mandating, where was one of those things? So, adopting benchmark requirements for all commercial and multifamily buildings, increasing the PACE financing. So, achieving 100% renewable energy in municipal operations.
So
But all of these things can be replicated.
So should New Paltz have something like that, or?
No, not that I know of. But
They
really,
should.
you could just
I'm saying they
scratch out
should
the
have.
name Kingston and write New Paltz on the
Yeah.
top. It would be the same.
Yeah. All I'm saying is that could be a template for
Absolutely.
collaboration.
Yes.
With New Paltz, because after all, we are part of a,
Yes.
not as large as the magnificent city of Kingston, but still we're in a population here that uses up a lot of energy, and we
Yes.
can collaborate, I think,
Oh, yeah.
more effectively.
Yeah. And that's the thing. There's no need to sit here and invest in hiring someone to create a whole plan. There are tons of plans all over the world, all over the state and all over the county that you could replicate and say, oh, we can do that, and that, and that.
I would like to say, you've introduced some very interesting ideas that seem to be very simple for Woodland Pond to incorporate. For instance, those little aerators on faucets.
Yep.
Or some of the shower things, or the buying of food.
Yep.
And I hope that that would be helpful to the committee and to the management, because I think they're simple enough to be able to incorporate.
I think so too. And the goal here, even if one of you pick up one of these things and do it, I consider what I've done to be a success. More of a success is everyone making a change. And even more is you taking this and bringing it to a larger scale of your entire community here and making and informing larger change, because then that speaks more volumes. So hopefully you can do that as a committee.
Yeah, Artie's next.
I can do this forever.
Small scale. I'm
Hold the
living in a
mic to your
cottage.
mouth.
Use the mic. Everybody has to hear back.
Really, my wife and I are living in a cottage, but on a larger scale. We have a lot of green area here in Woodland Pond. I was wondering if we, as a family, as a community, can purchase or receive from the compost department fertilizer that is in Seneca Meadows or more closely located, either free or on a discount basis, rather than having the company Gonzalez putting on our green area, commercial fertilizer.
Yep. So Seneca Meadows is not going to offer you anything. They only take. They take and they put stuff in the ground. But Community Compost Company has their own compost that they sell. I don't know if they have arrangements with, if you provide them product, if they give you a disc, nothing. It's bad. Why would they do that?
So can I have that for a second?
It's on.
So Woodland Pond, first of all, I'd just like to thank my sister. I think she did an amazing job. 100%. I mean, I have never seen her do this before. I was like in tears. So I am so proud of you. And people would never know we were sisters. I am so nervous when I get up and talk, but just kidding. So we have a contract with Community Compost Corp. And we have for 6 or 7 years. We started composting. We mainly compost out of the commercial kitchen, and we do, I don't know, like a ton a month or something,
Yeah.
something like that. I don't know, maybe
Not
2.
enough.
Yeah, not enough.
We're down to about half of what we were when we first started, but COVID did affect that as well.
Right. So the bottom line is we get none of that material back. So we pay them to haul it and bring the toters, and we get no compostable material back. Once a year, they donate 5 bags to our holiday raffle for the employees, and I'm the only one that ever puts the coupons in. So I get the compost, nobody else wants it. I would love to have it for Woodland Pond. But, I think, you've given us such a list. The SusCom has so much to do now. I mean, there's a million things that we could do. And maybe finding a new compost, contract where we could actually get some of the material is one of those things. But I mean, there's so many ideas that were brought forth today. I think there's just a ton of opportunity.
Yeah. And I did, one of the things that I started to talk about in the framework was open space and land use conservation. I didn't even get into that at all. But the city of Kingston, I managed over the last couple of years an open space plan. And New Paltz has the same for how to manage our open space. And I don't know if you have a plan here. I mean, there's a lot of open space here on the property itself, but I don't know if you have any kind of plans for what that looks like into the future, but an open space plan is something that's important as well. And as part of that, you could work in a non-toxic landscape management plan, or how you're going to use compost on the landscape. That could all kind of be an initiative in and of itself.
Okay, go ahead, Yakov.
Yeah, I mean, basically I came here 2.5 years ago, less than 2.5. And within a few months, we formed the Sustainability Committee, which is the only committee which involves management. I mean, and your sister was instrumental in pushing us to do that. So you settled your accounts later.
This has been going on for 40 years, Yakov. I said, this has been going on for 40 years.
Yeah, but this is a tremendously useful amount of information. Some of the things, although we have been looking into some of these things, I mean, there is much more information that, we gathered in the last couple of years. And I think that, that there is a lot of things that can be done at a higher level than the personal. The personal is necessary because it's not only just the little bit that we can do, but it's an educational thing. It's an attitude, changing the attitude towards things.
Right.
And at the level of Woodland Pond, I mean, some of the things that you say, for instance, I didn't know that we can get grants for solar panels.
Yeah, this was news to me too.
Because
I mean,
understood that the grants that were available for the state were for
just residential, right?
Residential only. But this is extremely so. Are we going to have all your package? I mean,
yes, we'll get her slides.
Yep.
We can get the slides, and the climate action plan that she talked about is available on the web.
Yep.
So even if Woodland Pond made a goal to make our own climate action plan, or let's say we wanted to let's beat our usage from yesterday. So if we get this app that tells us how much are we using for energy, and we can tell us the next day. I mean, there are so many things here that are easy for us to implement. So, I mean, you've been fantastic. Fantastic.
Stop.
I'm being serious.
It's not normally like this.
Well, but I'm being serious. I'm very impressed. Okay, so I'm going to let Julie start packing her stuff up, which will take her a few minutes. So if you guys want to come up and ask her a question, or, say anything or whatever, but thank you very much to the Sustainability Committee for having Julie. Thank you for coming. A great job.